Hi, and welcome to the So Many Things YouTube channel. I'm Tim, your host. Here you get to sew with the boys, quilt with the boys, embroider with the boys, and of course, mostly have some fun, and you might learn something along the way. Stay tuned! Hi, and welcome to Needles 101. Today we're going to talk about needles. Now we're going to talk about needles in a more generic fashion. We're not going to be concerned with brand. We're going to be more concerned with what the needles do and what their functions are and how to better choose the proper needle for the project you're working on. We're not talking about just quilting at this point. We're going to be talking about several different types of needles. So I've selected some needles and I have them laid out here in front of me, as you can see in the video. So at the bottom of the screen here we have Singer needles. Now Singer needles have been around since Singer sewing machines. They're really good for all-purpose sewing. However, you still need to pay attention to what you're sewing on. For example, these needles here are ballpoint needles, so you'll be using those for knits. In the middle, we have needles for woven fabric. Now, Singer marks theirs for woven, but most of the other companies will mark them as a universal needle. That means they're good for woven fabrics, and they're good for some knits. Not all knits, but some knits on the universal needles. Then, of course, we have gray band premium needles. These are better for some of the select Singer machines. So that's what's available in the Singer line, but that type of needle, or those types of needles, are available in our other brands as well. Our Schmetz brand is a very common brand. Generally it's used by our higher-end machines, and it's preferred by most of our higher-end machines. They make a huge assortment of needles for you. From the regular universal needles, to sharp needles in the Microtex, to jeans needles to help you punch through denim, to jersey needles for some of those knits. Yes, we have jersey needles, and we also have ballpoint needles. And there's a little difference between a jersey, a stretch, and a ballpoint needle. We're going to talk about those real quick here. A ballpoint has a rounded point on it. It's to burrow between the weave of the fabric, not to penetrate through the strands. A sharp or a pointed stretch needle is actually designed to penetrate through the strands if necessary, but it's still going to want to move the strands out of the way. You really don't want to break the strands in your weave on a knit fabric. We also have quilting needles. Great for your quilting use. We have embroidery needles, and then I've also set out some embroidery needles that are gold in color. You might see these listed as titanium needle. That gold coloring on the needles is a coating. That coating helps reduce the friction of the needle so it builds up less heat as it's running through the fabric stabilizers or whatever else you might be sewing through. So I've got a needle laid out here with the gold coating on it and a regular one next to it. So I'm going to pick this up and hopefully we can show you that they're going to look pretty much the same. Both the needles look the same. One has a gold coating on it, one's a regular, just a standard chrome needle. They both have a flat back. That flat back is what you need for a household sewing machine. Hence, most needles are marked as an HA or as an H indicator on the pack of needles to indicate that it's for a household machine. Commercial machines use a round back needle, and you don't want to interchange the two needles. So you're buying machines for your household machine, you want to look for that HA or an H coating so to know that it's actually a household designed needle. Now the other nice thing about our gold needles is they have two wear indicators I'm going to talk about. One is when the tip is no longer gold, you've worn out that needle. Doesn't matter if it's popping through the fabric or not. The tip is still good, but you've lost the benefit of having that titanium coating. So if the tip looks silver on our gold needle, it's time to throw that needle away and put a new needle in. The other way to tell if your needle is not good is if it pops as it passes through your fabric. If you hear the popping noise, you'll know that the needle point is no longer effective, and it might be actually ripping through the strands of thread in your fabric. It's time to replace that needle. So as we look at our needles laid out here, every brand of sewing machine has needles that come with it. Generally, that's the brand you should stick with when you're buying needles for your machine. For example, if I buy an Elna or a Janome, it's going to come with Elna or Janome needles. Those are actually organ needles rebranded for Janome, and they have their own color coding on them. But any organ needle will work in an Elna or Janome machine. Most of the machines engineered in Europe, they've used a Schmetz needle. So you should be sticking with a Schmetz brand needle if you're like buying a Viking or if you have a Bernina. That way, the scarf of the needle, which I'm going to show you again as we talk about the parts of a needle in just a moment, is matched with the hook in the machine to give you the best stitch quality. Now, what is the parts of the needle? Well, we know that we have a shank and we have a flat back, but we have this little area down here. And I'm going to try and get as close to the camera as I can so you can see it. That's the scarf. It's right above the eye of the needle, and it looks like an indentation in this image, but that's actually a thinner portion of the needle, and that's where the hook is going to pass behind to grab the thread to make the stitch for you. That's very important. If there's too much clearance there, or the needle is deflecting too much in or out, you will get skip stitches. Also, if your thread is bigger than what the groove on the front of the needle can handle, you will also get skip stitches because the fabric is going to cause more tension on that thread, causing it to drag and not allow that loop to be created. Not only do you need to pay attention to your fabric and thread, you need to pay attention to your needle size in relationship to your thread size as well. If I'm sewing with a 40 weight thread, I probably should be using a size 90 needle. A size 90 needle will have a larger groove, and that heavier thread will sink into that groove and create less tension issues for you as you're sewing. So as you can see, lots of needles out there for you to play with. Don't worry so much about the brand. A regular household needle will work in most sewing machines. There's always a best match. You'll find that out as you talk to your dealer and check with them as to the proper needle to be using for that machine. You always should be matching with the brand that came with the machine. That's what the manufacturer designed the machine with. I hope this answers your questions about needles and you've enjoyed the information and you learned a little bit today. Thanks for watching. One other thing to note about needles is they come in multiple sizes. A pack like this has 3 different sizes in it. How do I know which size I should be using? I should be using a smaller size needle, a 70 or a 10 size needle, for lighter weight fabrics. Medium weight fabrics I might be stepping up to a 75 or an 80, and to heavier weight fabrics I might be stepping up to a 90 or even very heavy up to a size 100. Now you do want to keep in mind that not every needle is going to work with your needle threader on your machine. On your machine, a size 70 is the smallest needle as I would recommend using your automatic needle threader on your machine. You can buy a size 60 or a size 65 needle, but I wouldn't recommend using the needle threader unless you intend to replace it on your machine after you've tried it and it got damaged, because the eye of the needle is going to be very small on those smaller needles. So I hope this little tip about the size in your needle threader is beneficial to you.